Karen. I thought we could do a little spread together in a journal if you're looking for something quick and easy to do. I bought this little journal. It's 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. It's very small. And I picked it up at a local independent art store, and I just love it. It's a watercolor journal, and I've kind of just been doing whatever I feel like in it. I'm not really keeping to a theme or anything. I was doing some abstract, just playing with some abstract watercolor, working on my lettering, and just, and I love finding quotes for art to go with it. It's more abstract, and then I did just some watercolor. I live in Western Washington, so we're in the middle of winter now, and we haven't had any snow, but it's been a lot of rain. So, so you can kind of see I've just been a little inspired by the seasons. And there's another abstract piece, and this one I did of a local pond was my inspiration for that. So I thought we could do a new spread and also do a landscape, but I was thinking about doing something more spring summery. I spent about 15 years living in Southern California, and I was always very inspired by the rolling hills of Southern California. So I thought I would do that on a page. So let's go ahead and get the page taped off so we have a nice border, and then we can talk about colors and get going. Okay, for the colors, I have chosen Hooker's green, sap green, and olive green. And I mixed each of those with some quin rust, which is right here. And the reason I did that is I feel like out of the tube greens are a bit too vibrant, and they're not quite as natural looking. If you go out and actually look at the rolling fields, they're not like sap green normally. There's usually like browns and yellows in it. So I went ahead and mixed those up, and then I actually added some yellow. This is Masha's bright yellow, and you see I made a big fat mess on the palette, and I'm not even going to worry about that because you can either mix it on the palette, you can mix it on the page, but the mixing of the colors is what makes watercolor so beautiful, in my opinion. So that'll be for the rolling hills. For the sky, I went ahead and just did some cobalt blue and some cerulean blue, and I just threw them in the same palette because, again, that's fine. That doesn't bother me at all. Go ahead and tape off your edges if you haven't. I use Scotch Delicate Surface Tape that I buy at the hardware store, and I do get some of the tack off by putting it on my pants or my shirt before I stick it down to try to get some of the stickiness off, so it won't hopefully rip my page when I'm done. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a sky, some distant mountains, and then some rolling hills in the foreground. So I kind of want the rolling hills to be probably the main. This is hard because this is a small sketchbook. You might be working with a bigger page so you can spread yours out better. So I'm going to hold my pencil very loosely so I can get kind of wonky lines. We don't want to be super rigid about this. And we'll just kind of make, that'll be the rolling hills in the foreground. And then we'll do some mountains in the background. So this little bit in the top portion will be the sky. So really I mixed up way too much paint. We do not need that much paint, but that's okay. So get your paint ready, and I'm going to just start with a round brush, size 8 Da Vinci. And for the top part, the sky, we're going to do it, I'm going to do it wet on wet, which means we're going to wet the paper, and then I'm going to take a tiny, tiny little bit of paper towel, and kind of get it ready. What we're gonna do is kind of blot the blue to make clouds, some cumulus clouds. Okay, so have your blue paint, your brush, your clear water, and a little bit of paper towel. And use your clear water and wet your sky. Okay. And sometimes it's hard to see. You can look at it at an angle to see if it's wet enough. And it doesn't need to be sopping wet. And honestly, this is such a small area. I don't think it really matters. But and then we're gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna color it on. I'm gonna like tap on the color. And this is funky paper. It's really textured and the paint acts kind of funny on it, but I actually like it. So yours might look a little different. So while it's still very wet, go ahead and dab off some of the paint to make your clouds. And don't dab off all the blue like I just did. Then you have to go back. Okay. Just tap that again. All right, I'm going to dry that really quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, I used my little dryer. I have one of these little heat gun dryers. This is by Mofa to help speed up the drying process. So I think this back mountain, I would like it to look a little blurry because it's in the distance. So I'm actually going to re-wet this upper part, including the sky. And that's okay, as long as you have a light hand, you're not going to hurt anything. And then I might switch to a smaller brush. I'm going to switch to a size 3 brush. And then, sorry, I forgot to mention, I had some purple paint on this palette, which is kind of like disappeared, so I have to get more out. But I'm going to go ahead and, oh, it doesn't even look purple anymore. Nice. Okay, that's okay. Let's get some more. So I'm using my Masha's watercolor for the purples. Okay. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And this is just giving it a little more fuzzy look to kind of indicate that it's in the distance. So I'm going to dry that. I'll be right back. Okay, and now let's add some purple to the closer mountain. So this one will be more purple. I don't know if you've ever noticed when you look at mountains in the distance, they often look purple or blue. I'll keep it nice and wet. And just try to move quickly so you're not leaving lines on the paper. Okay. So before we let this one dry, we're going to take a very small brush. I'm going to switch to this number 1 Da Vinci, and I'm going to take some of my, actually we'll do one of those lighter greens, and we're going to go ahead and do a tree line wet on wet. And it's going to spread and blur because these are distant trees. And so we're using the wet on wet so that the paint will make this nice loose. And then actually, let's add a little darker just here at the base. Not everywhere. Spread it out a little. Okay. And I'm going to just take some clean water and kind of soften that up a little. Okay. All right, so we have some faraway trees. And then I'm going to keep with the same small brush, and I'm going to put some much darker, like this will kind of be like in front of the distant trees. And again, don't make it everywhere. Make it random. Make some tall, some shorter. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing, just take some clear water and soften some of those edges. Okay. All right. So for the foreground, I would like to get my favorite brush for dry brushing. I use this Fusion brush by Yasutomo, number 2. And it's like this wonky, I don't know, there was like something, I don't know if it got bent in the mail or what, but it arrived kind of wonky, but it turns out it's actually really good for dry brushing. So if you have not tried dry brushing, grab a piece of scratch paper, and you don't want your brush to be too wet, so you kind of want it to be somewhat dry. So dry it off on a paper towel or a towel. And then if you lay it on its belly, you see how it leaves white? It leaves the white of the paper. That's what I want to go for texture in the distant fields. So I'm going to just not do very much water at all, and I'm just going to see what happens. We can always come back, and I'm not going to draw anything. I'm just going to kind of go for it. Okay. So there's our first bit of the field. Okay. And then we're going to kind of change the color up a little bit. And then we'll try to do another little bit. See how the green has changed? We're still dry brushing, and we're still doing it on the belly of our brush. So that's like another field right there. All right. And then we will add another one over here. Actually, I'm going to add a little yellow here. Let's do like a yellowish. Okay. And then we'll just do a regular green. And I'm going to try to not do it as much on the belly. Okay. Okay. So now, that's probably a little too much white, so I'm going to go back in now and add a little bit of paint So this is the darker color. We don't need quite that much white. Okay. And then we'll go back to this first color that we chose. Just add a little. And then back to the yellowish green. Okay. All right. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush and go for one of the darker colors that I have. And we're going to go ahead and do wet on wet again. And so this is like a hill in the foreground. And we'll do some darker, like bushes or shrubs or whatever. Okay, and then usually when you've got fields like this, or rolling hills or whatever, you have like little tree lines kind of that separate the fields. So we'll go ahead and add some in back here. With the darker color. Again, try to keep it random looking and not all lined up. Okay. And then we'll do another one right here. So I'm just going to wet this a little. Not very much, just a little. And just choose a different color. I'm just like mixing all these up. And we'll do that. Okay. So we have our distant hills. We have our foreground. So we've created some perspective. All quite simply, actually. Hopefully you're finding it's not too hard. I want to go ahead and add a little bit more yellow. This is all looking a bit monotone. So I'm going to take the bright yellow. You could do a cadmium yellow or something like that. And I'm just going to kind of just dab it in there. That could be like wildflowers or grasses growing. And if you feel like you got too much, like maybe I got a little too much there, we'll just dab some of it off. Great, I like that. And then I was thinking in the foreground, the hills of California in the springtime have the orange California poppies. So I was thinking maybe a little splash of orange, and actually we could kind of throw that elsewhere. So use whatever orange you have. I'm going to just grab this because I have it right here. This is Masha's orange, or you could have even used the quin rust we had there. And we're not going to draw poppies or anything. We're just going to kind of dab in some color. Let's actually try splashing. So cover up and give it a little tap. And then we'll get some nice random flowers. And then back here, we'll just dab some of the orange into the yellow. So these would be the distant flowers. And if you live in Southern California, you know exactly what I'm going for. Okay. I'm gonna let that dry and we'll be back. Okay, I think we just need a few finishing touches. One thing I like to do is for the clouds, when you have cumulus clouds, usually the bottoms of them are shaded like a gray, a bluish gray. So I have some Shadow Violet by Daniel Smith here on my palette. So I'm just going to very lightly, and again, I'm going to hold the brush very lightly and kind of roll it so I'm not like drawing. I'm not being too precise or anything. So hopefully it'll look a little more natural. And so there's the cumulus clouds with, and this will dry a little lighter, so I think that's fine. And then the mountains, I think, need a little more definition. So I'm going to go back to a round brush and just throw some blue into the purple to kind of create some, you know, indentations, and yeah, I like that better. Okay, kind of like that. Okay. All right, and we could probably, I think that's good. I'm gonna leave it alone, I think. I was thinking we might want to add some browns to it. I just have some browns here on my palette. I think this was transparent brown oxide with a little orange probably mixed in. So maybe we'll do a little, just a little bit. Again, use the belly of your brush so you're not applying too much, but let's just do a little brown in here too. There. Okay, I like that. One thing we might want to do is darken up the delineation between the hills and the fields. So go back to a smaller brush and let's use a darker color. I'm going to just use, I think, undersea green. Bring some of that over here. This is by Daniel Smith. And then I'm just going to, this is dry now, so we're going to do it dry. And we'll kind of try to make that pop a little bit. Oops. What am I doing? Okay. So there's that one. There's this one. Okay. Just soften that a little with some water. There. All right. I think we're good. So let's dry that, and then we'll go ahead and paint just a very loose square on the other side. So you could pick any color from your landscape over here. I'll probably do a green or a yellow or a mix of green and yellow over here. And then we will come up with a quote. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so it's all dried. I pulled the tape off and the tape came off nice. I kind of made a mess over here, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. Let's talk a little bit about your handwriting. So I'm going to do another video, I think, about being brave and putting your own handwriting in your art. But if you're not super comfortable with your handwriting yet, just a quick little tip would be to write out something in your normal print and then just thicken up some of the lines and then just keep it consistent for every time you thicken up an A, you thicken it up everywhere. And if you kind of keep it consistent like that, I think it'll look like your style, but it'll just be a little more interesting looking. So try that if you are feeling brave. If you are really afraid you're going to mess something up, you could type out a quote if you have access to a printer, and you could print it out. You could cut out the words and you could glue them in. What else could you do? You could use stamps. If you have some letter stamps, you could stamp it over here. But I would really encourage you to just start writing, because I guarantee you your handwriting is fine. And the sooner you start doing it, the more comfortable you'll get at it. So I picked out a quote for my page, and it's going to be, I'm looking for smaller shorter quotes, because I'm just trying to write kind of big to keep this theme going. And I am going to write, "Do you suppose she is a wildflower?" And that is a quote from Alice in Wonderland, since we added our wildflowers over here. Okay, let's get started. And I don't really like measure things. If you wanted to be really scientific about it, you could write it out on a separate piece of paper and then take measurements and try to center it. I just kind of wing it. I just don't have that kind of patience, but and you can make some words bigger if you have room and some smaller, just for some more interest. And just by the way, I'm writing with a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen in size 0.7 tip. And then I will switch to a smaller pen to write the author's name. Okay. And I think one thing that I want to add back over here, I was looking at it and I think it would look cute with like a little fence line somewhere. So like maybe kind of down here. So with a fence line, you want to just, I mean, this is like really far away, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but you would want to like start like bigger and get smaller and closer together. And then we'll just kind of make the little all right, there you have it. Very quick little spread. Took what, maybe a half an hour total, and I hope that you like your spread too. All right, well, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you later.